All right, so today's video is going to talk specifically about point-slope form because point-slope form is one of the other methods that we use for writing equations, believe it or not, in slope-intercept form. So we use the point-slope form when we have the slope and a point. We can also use this form to write an equation when we have 2 points. So I want you to start by writing this down. So take a moment and write this equation down. And this is on your formula chart, but on your formula chart, just like before, your y1 and your x1, and I'm going to make those ones a little more prominent, are not in parentheses. And just like when we use the slope formula, we want to put our 1's in parentheses. Okay? And again, we use slope-intercept form, which we talked about yesterday. Slope-intercept form, we have the slope and the y-intercept. We use point-slope form when we have a point and the slope. And we can also use it when we have 2 points because it's pretty easy to find the slope once we have 2 points. Okay? So what this equation says is y minus y1, and y, I don't substitute in y. And I guess technically I substitute in m. So we'll just kind of go over that one. Technically I substitute in m as well. I don't substitute in the regular y's or the regular x's. I only substitute in the 1's. I know this sounds crazy. Okay? So let's do an example. Okay, so I'm going to look at the example right here, 10, negative 3 and 5, 9. Okay, so let's say I had these 2 points, negative 10, negative 3, and 5, 9. Okay, so those are the 2 points I have. And we can copy this down on our notes later, but for now, let's do it on paper, and we can put the answer in our notes in a little bit. We have more room on our paper here. Okay? So, first thing we always have to do before we use any of these forms is we have to find the slope. Okay, that's like mission number 1. Always find the slope first. Okay, so I'm going to put these on. You can use whichever method you want. Okay, you can put them in a tiny table. You can do delta y over delta x. You can do the slope formula, whichever way you like. My personal favorite is a tiny table. I put them in a tiny table. I find delta y and delta x. To get from 3 to 9, I add 12. To get from negative 10 to 5, I add 15. I put delta y over delta x, and I get 12 over 15, which reduces to 4/5. So that's my slope. My slope is 4/5. Okay? So I have the slope, and I've got 2 points to choose from. I'm going to pick the one that looks easiest. Okay? To me, 5, 9 looks easiest because there are no negatives. I do not like negatives. I'm going to make all kinds of silly mistakes when I'm dealing with negatives. Okay. Now, this method, point-slope form, to go from point-slope form to write a slope-intercept form equation, you have to be able to solve equations to do it this way. Okay. But we have to be able to solve equations eventually. We're going to have to start sometime. Okay. So here's what you do. We start with substitution. Okay. So right now, I know that I need 3 things to substitute. I need m, x1, and y1. To use point-slope form. Well, I just found m. M is 4/5. And I'm going to use this one right here as my x1 and y1 because, again, they look easy. So I have a 5 and a 9. So when I substitute in, I'm going to say y minus y1, which is 9, equals 4/5 of x minus 5. All right? So that's the first step. Okay? And then I'm going to simplify. I've got these extra parentheses. And right now you're like, why am I doing this step? Because if I had used negative 10, negative 3, which I will do here in a second just so you can see what it looks like, these negatives would have been kind of a mess. Okay? So this becomes y minus 9 equals 4/5 x minus 5. This right here is point-slope form. Okay? That's point-slope form. Okay? So if they ask you to write something in point-slope form, boom, here it is. Okay? Now, if I want to take it a step further and write this in slope-intercept form or find the y-intercept, all I have to do is keep solving. Okay? So I have y minus 9 equals 4/5 x minus 5. Okay? So the first step when we solve equations, first we distribute, then we combine, then we isolate. Okay? So I'm going to distribute this 4/5 to everything inside. And all the leftovers come down. 4/5 of x 4/5 times negative 5, oopsie, 4/5 times -5 is -4. Okay. Now, I want this in y equals mx plus b form, right? Well, the only thing that's keeping me from being in y equals mx plus b form is this -9. So if I add 9 to both sides, I get y equals 4/5 x plus 5, because -4 plus 9 is 5. Now, that is, well, we did this problem, I did this in another video, and that's the exact same thing I got. Okay? Now, let me show you using the other ordered pair so that you see why I said it matters that we use these parentheses. Okay? So I have, I'm going to use the ordered pair 10, -3. So in this case, now I have m is 4/5, x is -10, y is -3. Okay? So in theory, I should get the same equation because they're both part of the same line. So I'm going to say y minus y1, -3, equals 4/5 of x minus -10. Okay? Well, minus negative, when I have two of the same sign, that means, this is kind of tricky, but when I have minus and negative, that means it turns those into positives. So y plus 3, because two negatives make a positive. X minus -10, which means x plus 10. Okay? So far, so good? All we did was substitute. So if they asked you for point slope form, boom, right there. There it is. Point slope form. Now, if they ask me to take it further and either find the y-intercept or put it in slope-intercept form, I would distribute this 4/5. 4/5 plus, I can tell you right now that it's 8, because I've done this math already. 4/5 times 10 is 8. And the only thing keeping me from being in y equals mx plus b form is this plus 3. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides, and I get y equals 4/5 x plus 5. They are the exact same thing. They work out to the same equation. They just look different in point slope form. Okay? This is point slope form. I'm sure you have a lot of questions, so write them down so you can ask me tomorrow. Your other video today was over finding slope from 2 points. Once you have the slope, you're just substituting the slope and the y-intercept into a slope-intercept form equation. All right, please bring questions tomorrow.